Well, let's get going then. My name is Kristen Rodier. I am a professor of philosophy in the Center for Humanities, which is in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. My pronouns are she, her, um, and I'm coming to you from what is colonially known as St. Albert, which is on Treaty 6 territory, which is also the traditional homeland of the Métis in Alberta. For this presentation, we'll be using Mentimeter, which is a response website for you to kind of answer some questions. But I just want everyone to know that your answers are confidential and anonymous. The website does not track your identity. And once we're done, we sort of delete that information from the website, but there's no way to track it to you. So please don't feel discouraged in participating at all. And then I'll send it to my colleague to introduce Elaine.
Thanks, Kristen. My name's Elaine Fabro. I'm the university librarian at Athabasca University. I'm speaking to you from the town of Athabasca, which is located on the traditional territory of the Cree and the Métis people, and in Treaty 6. And in my work, I oversee the library, the archives, and our copyright office, and my pronouns are also she, her. Sarah Jean.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, I'm Sarah Jean Watt. My personal pronouns are she, her, or they, them. And I'm speaking to you from Amiskwichi, Waskahikan, also known as Beaver Hills House or Edmonton, also on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of the Plains Cree, Woodland Cree, Beaver Cree, Ojibwe, and the Métis people. And I'm the Right Site coordinator here at Athabasca. The Right Site is AU's online writing center, if you're not aware of it. And you'll probably learn a bit more about the support you can get as we discuss our scenarios today. So as Kristen mentioned, we are recording. I'll also let you know that you can turn on live captions now if you wish, if it's easier to read along or to read instead of listen. Just click the More button, it has a 3 dots icon, and scroll down to turn on live captions. And you're also welcome to raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Raising your hand is under the reactions button. And we can give you access to your microphone and or camera. And of course, we'll encourage you to use the chat and the Mentimeter. So I'll get us started with our first scenario, the Zealous References page. Navdeep is writing a research paper for a nursing course. She needs a minimum of 6 peer-reviewed sources from select journals identified by her professor. She also looks at a number of websites during her exploratory research phase. She's very worried about not citing properly, and so she keeps track of every website she looks at. Her references page includes the 6 peer-reviewed sources she used and every website she looked at, whether she cited any material from the website or not. Is this an academic integrity issue?
Okay, so the scenario is in the chat for anyone who wants to catch up on some of the details there to make a more informed decision. But what I'll do right now is I will present, I'll put the link here, but I will also present to you a question. So let me read that question. Is Navdeep violating the misconduct policy? And the first, you can pick one of 3. I think you can only pick one. No, because all of her sources are on the references page. Maybe, because it is unclear why certain sources are on the references page. Or yes, because the references page has material that isn't cited in the paper. Oh, I see someone already figured it out. If the link is not working for you, you can go to menti.com and enter that code at the top of the screen. Okay, good. I always like it when there's a split decision of some kind.
Philosophy professor.
Yes, I love the yes and no answer. It's my favorite. Right. So it seems like there's a lot of maybes. Okay, so why don't we start? I think we're going to start with me. So in terms of an assignment, which includes a references page as part of a citation system, right, a documentation system, I always think about sort of what am I trying to communicate to my instructor from the student's perspective? What am I trying to let them know about my research and writing process? So I'm not just looking for sources, but I'm looking for how are they used? So when I see a lot of sources, but I do not know how they are used, it raises a question mark, right? I don't know why they're there. So just from an instructor perspective, we want to see how they're used, and we want to look at that references page, and we want to know how it connects to the body of the paper. And so there's a kind of breakdown there that kind of raises those questions. So we want to know, why are they there, and what have you gotten out of those sources? So sometimes for me, what I'm thinking is, oh, this person has included a certain number of sources out of compliance. So the paper being assigned is saying use at least 6 sources, right? And it's possible that they were just put there, but they weren't actually engaged with, which means that the component wasn't met. But I can understand, Navdeed's confusion about what to put on and what not to put on. And so, the I'll pass it to actually my colleagues before I talk about the actual academic integrity policy related to this question, maybe. So I'll pass it to Elaine first.
Thanks very much, Kristen. Yeah, for me, this is really an issue of Navdeep not understanding why it's important to cite sources. She recognizes that she needs to cite, but in citing every single site that she's looked at, it's clear that she isn't entirely certain why she has to cite the sources. The question for me is, what are we actually doing when we cite a source? We're recognizing the contributions that the scholars whose work we've quoted or have paraphrased in writing the paper, what their contributions actually are, and where the ideas that those scholars have presented have directly influenced the work that we're producing. In choosing to include materials that you haven't referenced in your works cited list, you may be inadvertently making the references you actually did cite and did review seem less important. If you read and use a source, make sure that you cite it. Navdeep would have benefited from a conversation with her tutor or instructor about what to cite, and also from doing some reading on the purpose of citations. Putting items in your reference list that you haven't actually referenced, for me, is an academic integrity issue. Sarah Jean.
Yeah, I love that point, Elaine, about why do we cite? That's so important. The thing that popped out to me in the scenario was the student's anxiety around not citing properly. It's a really common concern, and exactly why we want to have these discussions so that everyone can understand the basics of citing and feel confident with it. So there are always 2 parts to citing. One is the in-text citation, and the other is a corresponding reference entry. And each in-text citation needs that corresponding reference entry, and every reference entry needs at least one corresponding in-text citation. This means that the first problem is that there are reference entries that don't have corresponding in-text citations. So next question, how do you know when to provide an in-text citation while writing? Well, the term to cite actually is literally defined as to mention. So here's your hint. Anytime you mention a source, you should cite it. A mention can occur as a paraphrase, a summary, or a quote of an idea that came from someone or somewhere other than your own brain. So a good rule of thumb is if you find it somewhere and you write it, then you cite it. Find, write, cite. If Navdeep has mentioned any ideas that she originally found on the websites she lists on her references page but doesn't cite, she's unintentionally plagiarized. If she really didn't use the ideas from those websites, however, then her instructor may still believe that the assignment contains unintentional plagiarism because the assignment seems to be missing citations. So for a quick reminder, here's what an in-text citation should consist of. The basic rule is that the in-text citation should match the first one or two items in the reference entry. So for this example, I'll use APA because that's what's used in nursing, and Navdeep is in nursing. So an APA citation contains the author's name and the year, the who and when of the source, which match the first two items given in the corresponding reference entry, who and then when. Sometimes with websites, the who might be an organizational author, such as the Canadian Nurses Association. And sometimes there's no author, in which case the title of the particular page of the website would be used in place of the author. And it's also common for web pages to have no date. So ND, N period, D period, is used in place of a date. This is for APA. Even though a web page may be missing an author or date, it doesn't mean that we should treat the source as though it doesn't matter. So we would still need to cite it if we mention it in our text. So find, write, and cite. Oh, Kristen, you're muted.
I got that. The end of that discussion is just to sort of say that, just to circle back to what Sarah Jean was talking about, that correspondence issue between an in-text citation and a references page, that the policy, the academic integrity policy, specifically calls out that relationship. So section 2.2c says the whole and or parts of the coursework submitted lacks citations even though a list of sources is provided. So that's why this sort of, it doesn't necessarily mean you did plagiarize, but it says, hey, there might be missing citations. So some of these sources might be mentioned, but not cited. And that's where this scenario raises that question. So it really does depend on what's going on in the writing of the paper too. Our next scenario, I want to be able to put it in the chat. Oh, good. It's somebody writing a philosophy paper. I just copied my link again. Nothing's ever perfect. Here we go. Okay, so Kim is writing a philosophy paper. They have already included a number of quotations and are thinking maybe they have too many quotations. They have a sentence they want to paraphrase in their essay, but the way it is said by the original author is so precise. So precise, they cannot find another way of expressing the sentence. So the student puts the sentence into a paraphrasing tool online that jumbles the word order, uses a little online thesaurus magic, creates a unique but albeit confusing paraphrase. Then the student puts the paraphrase in their essay with a couple of changes and includes a page number. So it is a paraphrase with a page number. Is this an academic integrity issue? And I also love this as a philosophical issue about the self and using technology, and where it's a bit post-human, if you ask me. But nobody needs me to editorialize in that way right now. I will just present. Unfortunately, I'm having pop-ups here. I'll present the question. I'm just going to get the link for everyone in the chat. Thank you, Sarah Jean. Here's the link for everyone. And I'm going to show you the question associated with this scenario. Is Kim violating the misconduct policy? So here you're allowed to sort of scale your feelings, scale your gut instincts, strongly disagree, strongly agree with these 3 statements. Not if they cite the source. Only if they use the scrambled text exactly. But remember, Kim made a few changes after. No, because they made changes to the scrambled text. Interesting. Interesting. Maybe I set it up a little too generous with posthumanism here. Only if they use the text exactly. Okay. All right. Oh, people. Oh, good. We've got some controversy here. Interesting. Okay. All right. So let's get back to, oh, we've got some chat discussion here. Good. So I'll pass this to Sarah Jean first.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Yeah, it's so interesting to see people's differing opinions. I think for this one, we should look at the guidelines of when to quote versus when to paraphrase, just to get us started. So those guidelines can differ by style guide, discipline, or type of paper. But I'll refer to some ideas from APA and MLA just to give you an idea. So Kim has the right idea because both style guides state that quoting is useful instead of paraphrasing when the wording is very unique or would be nearly impossible to express in a different way. However, although Kim has a reason to wish to quote this particular passage, I do wonder why they chose to quote instead of paraphrase in all those other situations. If the quote to paraphrase ratio was more balanced, they wouldn't be facing this issue with a passage that works perfectly as a quote. So my guess is that Kim is facing an overall lack of confidence with paraphrasing. There's some basic steps to paraphrasing correctly and effectively. Read, ensure you're understanding, put the original text away, draft the paraphrase, cite the paraphrase, and double check the original for accuracy and effectiveness of your paraphrase. It's so important to not have the original text in front of you when you draft your paraphrase. The problem that many students are afraid of with paraphrasing, which is that their paraphrase won't be good enough and will result in unintentional plagiarism, is easily avoidable if you can trust your understanding of the idea. If you truly understand the idea, which you must if you're going to discuss it, you don't need to have the author's exact wording of the idea in front of you as you write. You already understand it. You don't need to check, not yet. If you keep the original text in front of you, it's way too easy to transfer the exact wording or sentence structure of the original. And it's that actually results in unintentional plagiarism. So again, begin by reading and rereading the idea you want to paraphrase. Ensure that you understand what you've read and then put the original away. When you write about the idea, write it as though you're explaining it to someone else as you understand it. That's the way to ensure the idea will be clearly written in your own words. You might also feel a lack of confidence in your ability to word things to sound very academic, professional, or formal. It is hard to compete with the wording of an author who has been writing for decades in their field as a trained professor or researcher. So please don't worry about saying what they said as perfectly as they did. That's not the point. Part of the purpose of a paraphrase is to demonstrate your understanding of the material in a clear way. As the MLA handbook explains, paraphrasing allows you to maintain your voice while demonstrating that you understand the source because you can restate its points in your own words and with your own sentence structure. And this is why I'm quite concerned that this student has included a confusing paraphrase generated from a paraphrasing tool. A confusing paraphrase will not only be illogical, it will also demonstrate to your instructor that you do not understand the idea, even if you do. And finally, I'd like to mention that because I have experimented with these paraphrasing tools, they don't give a complete paraphrase, and they actually still result in plagiarism. So for example, two that I tried simply replaced several of the words with synonyms. And paraphrasing is not done effectively when just replacing some of the words with other words that mean something similar. The sentence structure also needs to be significantly different in order to avoid plagiarism. And as in Kim's case, the replacement of words with synonyms can sound clunky and draw attention to the sentence as one that doesn't belong. I also tried a generator that swapped the sentence structure, but it didn't change enough of the wording used. So unfortunately, all of these tools resulted in plagiarism. I'll turn it over to Elaine.
Thanks, Sergine. For me, the description that's given of the scenario seems to indicate that Kim doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel confident with the subject matter. They've chosen to include a number of quotes in their paper, and to eliminate the need for another quote, they've chosen to use a paraphrasing tool to reorder the text so that it isn't a quote. Which still doesn't demonstrate confidence or understanding of the subject matter that they're working with. While there are disciplinary differences relating to the use of quotes, as Sarah Jean has talked about, in general, paraphrasing a work, that is restating it in your own words, can help you to assess your own level of understanding of the content. A conversation with her tutor would have benefited Kim in this scenario, as would reviewing some of the sources on citing within the library's collection or having a discussion with the right site. The biggest issue, however, for me is that Kim doesn't appear to be confident enough in their understanding of the topic to be able to paraphrase the text that the author has written. There may be supplemental sources in the library's collection that Kim could have reviewed to help increase their understanding of the topic. But this is another situation where a conversation with your tutor would have been beneficial. Once Kim felt more comfortable with the topic, instead of using the paraphrasing tool, they could have used a thesaurus to identify other terms that could be used to describe what the author is saying, but again, putting that all into your own words, not relying on the sentence structure that was presented in the original sentence. Being able to successfully paraphrase a text will also help your instructor to understand where your level of knowledge is with the topic and how they can help to fill in the gaps in that knowledge. Kristen.
Great. Okay. I want to follow up on a question that was in the chat from Erica. Thank you for that question. What if one word is really compelling and the rest can be rephrased? I think a single word quotation or maybe a phrase quotation that can't be replaced can be appropriate. It really depends on your discipline and what about those words or phrases are important. And I'll give you an example. In philosophy, if you were quoting Socrates for saying the unexamined life is not worth living, let's say, that's a famous phrase of Socrates's. If you paraphrase that in a way, you're going to lose its meaning. So, for example, it would be Socrates says, we have to examine ourselves. It's not quite there, and so sometimes there are words with the proper punch, but the question is, does it, you're in a way, you're demonstrating your judgment about what words can't be replaced and showing that you understand the importance of the words that are there and chosen. So that's a different issue, I think, than, hopefully I answered your question. That's a slightly different issue than when we're looking at academic sentences from research. Yes, of course, it should be in quotes. Yeah. That's a different question than when we're looking at academic research and peer-reviewed articles, what you have there is the end product of sentences that have been edited potentially by multiple people over long periods of time, and they're extremely complex, and they can be paraphrased, right? Even though they might look like they can't be because of how complex the grammar and the sentence structure of them are. So that's where we take in Sarah Jean's suggestions here, where you put it down, start explaining it to your friend, see if you can get out the idea in a better way. Thanks. And the other thing I'll say about the paraphrasing tool is that if you can put a sentence into a paraphrasing tool and get one of these unnatural, garbledy reverse sentence structured things out, then so can I. And so I have actually reverse engineered some things that I've found, and actually, it's not hard to backtrack when something starts kind of hurting your brain to read it. You go, okay, well, I know where that is, but it doesn't say it like that. Anyway, so don't do it. Okay, and one of the reasons is because of the values that animate the academic integrity policy are things like honesty. So the question is what I've produced, whether you can understand it or not, but is what I've produced an honest reflection of my work? Or is it an honest reflection of my use of a paraphrasing tool? And was that the assignment or not, right? So that's where it comes to fair representation and trusting you in the production of your assignments, trusting your, fair evaluation from your instructor. We all have to be in these kinds of relationships where we're supporting each other. And I have to trust students to submit a fair reflection of their learning. So what does that mean? Well, we have to take time to build skills to paraphrase dense materials, and that takes time. And one of the things that really strikes me about this scenario too is that there's a real focus on that end product, right? How many quotations do I have? Do I need more? How do I get rid of some? There's like final product tweaking that's going on, where I feel like the student really needed support earlier on in the process, reaching out to the tutor, reaching out to the right side, really diving into the ideas and reflecting on them, percolating on them, and then producing them, synthesizing them yourself. Then you won't be as worried about how many words in my quotation here or there. So that's just a tip that way. And then, then that takes time. We do that over our whole university career. That's what we're here to get good at. The plagiarism policy, 2.2D, does say the coursework has been copied in whole or in part from an individual, a textbook, a solution manual, the internet, or any other source. And a paraphrasing tool would qualify as a place we're copying from. So we wouldn't want to do that. Stay away from the paraphrasing tool. It's wrong, but it also won't help you. It won't help you in your growth, and it won't help you in your grade. And so, yeah, please stay away from that. And then we're going to go to our last scenario.
Can I just jump in there and go
please.
back to Erica's question?
Yes, please.
I did just want to say that, now this wouldn't necessarily be in the case of a compelling word, and you specifically said, what if one word is really compelling and the rest can be rephrased? So yes, unique wording is one of the uses of quotes. But sometimes there are words that can't be changed. There's sometimes and Kristen was saying that, with the Socrates quote, but the same is true even with just terminology. Sometimes you can't change the terminology. For example, in sciences, or, every discipline has its vocabulary that has specific meanings and are really important. You can't change them. So in those cases, when you're paraphrasing about words that can't be changed, that's when it's really important to change the sentence structure. And it's also okay if some of the original words, like individual words from the original, make it into your paraphrase, as long as you have expressed it in a different way that reflects your own understanding. Sometimes you will see original words. You don't have to change every single word, but it needs to be very different the way that you've expressed it, and that's usually in the sentence structure. So you need that combination, that balance of different wording, different sentence structure, and then if there are one or two words in there that were in the original, you don't have to quote them. That could get kind of awkward if, or same with using the thesaurus and just changing them out. It can sound kind of awkward. So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, we all have to use the, is, and, you know, we all have to, therefore, we all have to use those words. And then we have like unique words like, you know, biology or something like that, that it's like, well, why would I put a synonym for that? I'm referring to biology. Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. That's a really good clarification. I'm just going to head over to our last scenario. This goes to Elaine, and it's called A Little Help from Some Online Friends.
Thank you. Ernesto is trying to develop an example for a paper in science. He is totally lost and cannot understand what the question is asking. He cannot understand why he needs to come up with an example, much less what it is supposed to look like or achieve. He plugs the assignment question into Google and a number of assignments on Course Hero come up. He looks them over. Some of them include feedback from the instructor. Ernesto then understands what the assignment is supposed to do and comes up with his own unique example that is nothing like any of the ones that he viewed online. Is this an academic integrity issue? And Kristen, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, here's the Menti for this one, and I'll share my screen. All right, here's our options, everybody. I feel like a game show host today. Is Ernesto violating the misconduct policy? No, because he comes up with his own example. No, because everyone is doing it. Yes, and so is the person who uploaded the assignment. Here we need music. Do, do, do. I'll remind you, these answers are confidential and anonymous. Great. Okay, clear controversy then. Nobody liked the middle one. No, because everyone is doing it. Everyone heard enough from their parent. Everyone does it. Anyway. Okay, I will pass this one to Sarah Jean first.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. Well, I think of what I would do as a writing coach working with this student, and I would definitely refer him to his instructor. The place Ernesto got stuck was at the very first stage of the writing process, understanding the assignment instructions. The writing process begins when you receive your assignment, and you think about it and understand it. Then it continues through planning, outlining, pre-writing, research if there's research required, drafting, and then revising, editing, and proofreading. So that's the writing process. If you get stuck before you can even plan out your assignment, your first task should be to get clarity from your instructor, the one who will be marking your complete assignment after you've completed the writing process. Otherwise, you'll have no idea if all your hard work through all the other stages of the writing process were done correctly. And now, here's a question to consider. If you found it online, how do you know that the previous student understood the assignment correctly? Can you really trust the work of someone who uploaded their assignment to Course Hero? My general rule of thumb for this one is to avoid anything Course Hero. I don't want to hear that phrase. If it's from Course Hero or a similar site, there are many other sites that are the assignment gathering and dispersing sites. Just don't click it. Don't bother. It could not only lead you in the wrong direction about the assignment, and the instructions, but instructors are also usually aware when their course materials are on Course Hero. They'll be watching for any similarities to previously uploaded assignments. And I do realize that Ernesto did a very unique assignment, so there will be more for us to talk about. But I'll also just talk quickly about some strategies for reading and understanding your assignment instructions. Active reading is a good place to start, right when you have the assignment instructions in hand to help you understand what's being asked of you. Highlight it, circle, underline, comment, question, interact with the instructions, maybe even using a PDF or browser editing tool, or even printing them off to do it if you prefer. As you're reading, look for hints like direction words, verbs, highlight those, define, discuss, explain, analyze, identify, any verb, any action word. All of those direction words will give you a hint about what you're being asked to do. And you can also look for bullet points or lists of required components, even if they're written out as sentences, and use those as a checklist. And finally, you can try to answer the questions who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who's the intended audience? What's the topic? Which parts of the course material does the assignment cover? What's the purpose or objective that you're supposed to learn from completing the assignment? Answering all of those questions can give you a sense of where and how to start. And of course, you can get support from the right site as well by requesting a planning appointment, and I'll put that link in the chat. But you will still need to clarify with your instructor if you're not sure how to proceed. After our appointment, we always would request that you get your instructor's final approval for your planner outline. So remember, with all these strategies, your instructor is your number one go-to to help you understand your assignment instructions. How about you, Elaine?
Thanks, Sergine. Yeah, I'd agree with the instructor as being a really good resource in this scenario. It's clear that he isn't certain about what is actually required of him for the assignment. And the other thing I'd note is that generally speaking, it's not a great idea to search Google for assistance in this kind of scenario. Google provides such a wide range of access to, or such wide access to a really crazy variety of resources, many of which are not scholarly in nature, and in fact, some of the sites are presenting misinformation or inaccurate information. If you have to do a search for information to help you understand the context in which you're working, there are better sources of information out there, such as Google Scholar, which actually does include scholarly materials, and of course the library. Course Hero and sites like it aren't reliable sources of information, and using these is guaranteed to create an issue for you. The library has a variety of tools on evaluating internet sources that is available from our website. And one of the most important things to do when you're evaluating internet sources for their validity is to determine who the author is and whether that author is actually an expert in the field. I'll post a link to our one of our guides on evaluating internet sources into the chat, and I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Okay, so there's some really nice stuff going on in the chat about strategies and sort of difficulties around being able to find resources on how to do your assignment when you need it. And, you know, I totally empathize with that. And I hope that we all understand that, at least with the nature of AU being distance learning, and we're doing asynchronous, and we all have, we're in different parts of our courses at different times, you know, and we have these certain hours when we can get a hold of people, and it's challenging. And I just want to sort of normalize that that's a difficult part of the learning conditions that we're all working with. And and one of the things that we need our learners to do is to understand the sort of escalation procedures around finding help at the university. So one is to contact your tutor. If that's not working, you contact the coordinator. If that's not working, you contact, tutorial services, learning services. If that's not working, you keep going. We really need you to push so that we know where those problems are and so that you get the resources that you need. It's not ever going to be perfect. But we also don't want you to feel like there's nothing there to support you either. So just to go back to the sort of moral problem that animates what Ernesto was doing, there's certainly a huge difference between taking the example that someone already used and giving it out as your own, right? But, it is still kind of skipping to the end product of the assignment versus sort of struggling through understanding what the assignment is. And there's a bit of a bad strategy there in terms of your own learning, in terms of, okay, if I have not figured out how to read through the assignment guidelines in this one, what's going to happen with the next assignment and the next assignment in this course and also in my program? Because courses are often structured very similarly. And, being able to decipher what's required is a skill you're developing. And that stuff just gets harder as your life goes on, trying to discern what's expected of you. Anyway, that's a side note. So there is a sort of violation of trust here that is going on, though. Like I sort of trust that what you're submitting is a true reflection of your ability. And if you've used as kind of a prop to or sort of shortcut online, then it's not really telling me what you were able to decipher or not. And I understand it is a bit of a cliff that we hand our assignments in over. Is this going to be right or not? And there's a lot of anxiety there. And that's why we really encourage you to have contact with your tutor. And also just reflecting on the purpose of the assignment. Is the purpose of the assignment to decipher the instructions and produce knowledge? Or is the purpose of the assignment to check Course Hero, see what other people have done, and then produce an assignment, right? What is the spirit or intention of the assignment? And then I want to make a bigger point about academic integrity and why we're talking about it and why it matters and why I think we should be able to have these discussions that are, kind of low stakes, where we can talk about right and wrong in our education, and sort of how we all work together to make this university meet our needs, let's say. And one is that upholding the value of our credential that we get from an institution is really a two-parter. We have to be over here making sure that there are standards, and you have to be interacting with us in ways that meet those standards. And we have to have that sort of trust so that what we're doing has meaning. And that's sort of the bigger picture here. So the less we're able to shortcut through things, really, for all of us, the better. And then just to be sort of really drive it home around the policy, this would violate the policy if it violates the policy whether or not there's proof, but it would be a violation of the policy if the instructor could prove it, of course. And the reason for that is 2.2D says the coursework has been copied in whole or in part from a source. So keep in mind that Ernesto is copying in part, right? He changed the example, but he's still, using a formula in a way. And it also kind of goes to 2.2A, which talks about the coursework being in whole or in part completed by another individual, which would count as the person on Course Hero. So that's a problem. He also certainly hasn't cited Course Hero and said, hey, here's, so it counts as a kind of plagiarism, insufficient citation. You wouldn't want to cite Course Hero, right? So if you wouldn't want to cite it, should you use it? No. Okay. And then the bigger point too is that the person who posted it is also technically violating the policy. And I've seen many people asked to take things down or to have a misconduct case for having something online itself because, Section D says that it's a violation of the policy to say, communicate substantive content of any examination to course mates or others, and that counts for assignments too. So we can't be communicating our assignments to each other. And I always feel like when I talk about improper collaboration or improper sharing, I'm making it sound like it's wrong to have study buddies. I really don't want to put that out there, So just think about how we can study and work together. And, if we were in a classroom together, we would say, are you working on this assignment? Do you know what we're supposed to do? But then we also have walls up about what we produce. And so just feeling that that difference between what I'm doing and what you're doing and making sure we're keeping that really honest is important. And it's and we need other people. We need people to help us learn. So I will open it up or see if my co-presenters have more to say. Stuff was happening in the chat while I was talking.
Yeah, I'll just point out that Elaine put the AU Helping Contact link there. And I think through there, you can access advisors and so on, the different faculties. Then I also gave a link for the coordinator or assistant lookup. So if you're not sure who your coordinator is for your course, you can use that page to find out if you need to contact someone because your tutor is not responding or something like that.
And if I can, thank you, that's really helpful. If I can follow up on two things, if I remember both of them. I remember one of them for now, which is it's very important to update your contact information in your student portal in your MyAU because, our students take courses over time and they can use a personal email. So what is your default email? Do you know what your default email is at AU? And is that the one you're checking? Another one is your phone number updated and correct in our system as well? Because you might be reaching out to your tutor and your tutor might be trying to reach out to you and you might be lost in digital whatever. And the other thing too is that when you start a course, hopefully you know where to look for your tutor information, which is under My Letters on your main page. Your tutor information will be uploaded there. And then if that is not current, usually they'll have to post something in the announcements form that says, hey, I'm on leave, contact this person instead. It should all be updated, but just knowing where to look is really getting to know your AU student life. It's a struggle. I took courses here. It was a struggle for me, so I understand. But yeah, just reach out to people. You're not pestering us.
Yeah, we're here to help too if you get stuck. At the right side, I did put the appointment link there, and I'll put my email address there as well. And the librarians are wonderful as well. You can book appointments with the librarians if you have research questions or questions about the library. And, sometimes just talking to another staff or faculty member can help you pick up those little tidbits that you didn't know, right? We even learn those from each other. Elaine's been here for a very long time. Kristen's been here longer than I have, and I've learned things from both of them. So, we work remotely and we need to kind of keep our ears peeled, if that's a phrase, to our colleagues to find the things out.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to normalize that communication is a challenge in a distance education, and so we need to do what we can to bridge the gap.
And we're always happy to answer any questions that people have. So,
Absolutely.
so are there questions? Speaking of
Yeah,
that,
really.
I see Jeremy's chatting.
There was a good discussion just above about not wanting to not wanting to cut corners because that sort of catches up with you in your education. And yes, you want to be picking up skills wherever you can so that you don't have gaps going forward. Yeah, Jeremy's just saying, been looking for ways for enhanced communication with people at AU for a long time. Yeah, it's sort of the nature of our institution that it's a challenge. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we have one more comment coming, but yeah. Yeah. If there's a forum function on the course, that's one thing. But you're right, there is the question is about getting in touch with other students in the course. Yeah. Yeah. And there has to be ways to do that don't violate academic integrity, right? Like we really want to have those study buddies. And I have seen people asking for study buddies on, like I follow the Reddits and the Facebook groups and stuff. People do ask for study buddies, but it's really one-off. I would just plug here the AUSA. Is that what it is?
AUSU.
AUSU.
Yeah.
Thank you. AUSU as really a place to go and really reach out to people. I know that they're really active and they have good communication channels, so maybe that's one avenue. On the Right Site Writing Forum. I love that idea.
Yeah, I think maybe some of the people here have been there already, but just a reminder, you never know. You might come across somebody who is in your course at the writing forum or at another webinar.
Can you briefly say what the forum is?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Kristen. It's just an informal gathering on Tuesdays around, I think it's 12:30 to 1:30. You'll see that on the site. And, we have different topics from week to week, but it's also open. So you can bring whatever questions or thoughts about writing that you have, can share your experiences. And I think the biggest group we had was around 11. But we've had as few as one. So come and hang out with a couple of writing coaches and some other students. We'll be running them most of the weeks of the terms. I think we'll end on December 6th for this term, but most Tuesdays we will be doing that.
I love that. So do you do like sort of like a chat and then like a Pomodoro, or do you just chat about writing?
Pretty much just chat throughout. Yeah.
Right.
When you sign in, you can write a question in the sign-in form, or you can ask questions in the chat. We give everybody access to the camera and the mic, and try to form a little community time.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Great.
And there's similar kinds of activities that happen within the library in terms of webinars and, whether it's a general orientation to the kinds of services and resources that we have available, or sometimes more specific sessions on specific tools or things like that. And so you can find us on Twitter and on Facebook. And actually, at the bottom of the library homepage, there's a link out um, to those sites. So
Well, thanks everyone. You're a great audience.
Absolutely. Thank you for participating in my polling.
Oh, Jeremy's having trouble accessing our right site Dropbox. I'll get you to just email me, Jeremy, and I can help you out. I'll put my email address there. I'll also pop in the chat before we go the link to the last Whomi cheat where we had different scenarios.
But similar format.
Similar format, yeah. So if you want to kind of challenge your brain on some other ethical dilemmas, then check that out.
I'm the writer.
Kristen is our amazing writer behind the scenarios.
Okay. Well, we'll sign off from there. Thank you. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Sarah, Jean, and Elaine.
Thank you too, Kristen.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.